Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. We had Andrew Bermudez as our August guest host on CRE Chat this past month. And I don't know if we ever really covered this topic before, Melissa. I know we've been kind of talking about virtual and kind of changing the tools that we're using. So this was a really exciting topic that we did of virtual presentations, which was perfect timing for a presentation pitch that I had in August. So Andrew, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you got to be a guest host on CRE Chat.
First of all, thank you for having me. I'm a huge fan of CRE Chat. In fact, Melissa knows this. I register CRE.chat, the domain, and not to hold it hostage, but to give it to you too, so that when you're ready, nobody took it. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Anytime, just reach out. No cost. I'll pass it on to you guys for free. I'm a former commercial real estate broker. My name is Andrew Bermudez. I used to be a senior vice president at Lee and Associates. I was there from about 99 to about 2012. I left to start a couple tech companies, and those were, not really big. I left and started Digsy after meeting some of the original LoopNet guys and the board member of Zillow. And what Digsy is really is it's a free way to list commercial real estate properties and expose them directly to individuals searching on their own. So we're talking about tenants, out-of-state tenants, buyers, investors, etc. And what we do is we rank high on Google so people can actually see the properties, but then in our technology is the ability to capture more leads. What happens is when you go to somewhere like the traditional CATs that you see out there that are facing, tenants and buyers online, you usually just convert about 1.2% of them into an actual lead, which means that 98% of the people who are looking at your listing, you don't even know about. So that means that you're missing deals on the market, whether it's a broker, a boutique broker, what they call resi-mercial brokers that don't want to pay for the expensive listing services. So what we do is we have little technologies that will actually capture the information, track these individuals, put your properties in front of them, and actually reveal their identity so that you can call that broker resi-mercial broker or landlord. In addition to that, we have tools because we understand that most brokers need these tools to work across multiple platforms. We have tools that are baked into the platform that you can basically use the same technology to see who's looking at your listings on other platforms, or even create your own mini MLS with the Digsy data. So you can actually have your own commercial MLS with a little link where, like, if you're let's say you're a new broker and you're starting out, you can grab this link, put it on Craigslist, even create Google ads for words like, industrial for sale, let's say Nashville. And you're able to use that as if it's your own personal website and actually draw leads into your funnel per se. So we're all about creative marketing, lead generation, really, really big on data, but that's pretty much about myself. And the site's getdigsy.com.
Well, I absolutely love the program. I've told a ton of brokers about it. And I have to say, it sounds like you've added quite a few features since the first time we talked.
That's right.
Do you remember, Andrew, the first time we talked? We've never met in person, and it was obviously, it predates the pandemic, but.
Was it when you and I were trying to figure out how to work Zoom?
Yes. Yes. And so you have been kind of our, again, you registered our name. You're a resident tech guru. And I remember when Casey and I were talking about this topic, who would be the best co-host for this CRE Chat topic? You were top of mind, Andrew, because of just your technical abilities and the fact that my first experience on Zoom was with you. I was still in Memphis, and you were demoing your product. And so basically you were giving me your sales pitch via Zoom, 2.5 years before anybody else started even using Zoom. So we think you are the most qualified person to really help us kind of navigate these new types of scenarios where we're not in person anymore, where we're actually giving presentations to people in other cities. We're not flying out there. And, traditionally in commercial real estate, someone either comes into town or we fly out there. And a lot of our communication now, and it has transitioned. And I think, and that leads us kind of to our first question on the chat was, how has pitching business changed within the last 6 months? So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So first of all, we stole the whole video conferencing and all that stuff. Since we're a tech company, we have venture capital, and a lot of the cohorts from our investors, cohort meaning other CEOs, other companies, other sales teams in companies that our investors have invested in. We've learned from them, and what they've been doing for the past 15 years actually is using even tools before Zoom kind of went on the ascendancy. They've been using GoToMeeting or different tools like BlueJeans, which I've never personally used, and they've been doing all their sales like that, and instead of flying around. So the one thing that we noticed was a couple things. Is we're really big into understanding what the path to success and being able to have like a recipe for success. So when the first tool we had developed, while we're building the Digsy listing service to promote the properties to tenants and buyers on behalf of brokers, was Digsy AI. And it was an internal tool we built, which was a way for you to prospect. It's not so much a CRM, much more of a prospecting engine. A lot of people do use it as a CRM, to be able to email directly through Digsy, see how many people are opening the email, and prioritize those people so you can call them right away, and you can click to dial, and you don't have to do all this manual data entry. So the one thing that we looked at is when we were baking things in there, we were actually started doing these things on Gmail and reading a ton of data on things. So the one thing that we knew from the email stuff was there were statistics to get more replies. We're trying to say, hey, what can we tweak? Why aren't we getting the responses that we want, right? And we found out little tricks, like things like having call to actions that are very clear and linking to something that you can track. And second is having your picture on there. And this will all come full circle, because I know it seems like I'm going on a rant, but having your picture, and you see like all the emails I send you and I send everybody else who we interact with have our pictures, whether it's myself or the team. And what we notice is that picture and having complete information in your signature, so that the recipient knows, oh, this is Andrew Bermudez, CEO, co-founder of Digsy, and here's the LinkedIn thing. So he's a real person. It's not a robotic email, or I may think it's not a robotic email. But the picture itself, the data showed out there that having that image so that people can put a face with a name increased the reply rates by 20 to 25%. And that happened to us.
Wow.
And then what we had noticed was data behind video in the sense of trying to get a face-to-face meeting requires a lot of not only back and forth, but it's a big time commitment, where somebody will take a Zoom call or a virtual meeting before they leave the house, So we found that it was a lot easier to get into people's calendars than trying to set up a physical meeting. And on top of that, the time restrictions, that would only restrict us to our local marketplace, where with that technology tool, you can kind of go everywhere. Yeah. So we found that worked. And initially, we would just do demos without the videos. And I said, okay, well, can we get our conversion rate a little bit up? Because you have so many of these meetings that you do that you can get your conversion rate, meaning like, hey, if I'm only getting one person out of 100 people we pitch to convert, that's a crappy number. But even if I can get two, I've just 2x'd my conversion rate. So we did a lot of research on this, and then we grabbed the data, and then we started trialing it out. And what we saw is that the moment we started flipping our cameras on, there was this instant personal connection. They could see who you are. When you crack a joke, they actually see that you're either being facetious or you're doing, it's just a lot more of a natural thing. And it feels like you're personally in the same room with the same person, but you're not, necessarily spraying on them some COVID-19. So it's worked out really well, and it helps a lot. So we started also trying it out on customer support calls, right? Sometimes you have, people in commercial real estate, some are techie, some are not. I would say the vast majority of them just don't have time to deal. They just want the problem fixed. And we want to fix their problem ASAP so that they're just delighted and tell all their friends about us. And at the same time, that's just the right thing to do for a customer. Mm-hmm. So once we started doing that, we noticed that the tone of the phone call changed dramatically when you're on video. Mm-hmm. So it not only helps you do that, but you can actually see what's on the other side of the person's screen, because these tools allow you to share your screen. So it's actually not only made it more efficient, but it's actually increased the ROI of our interactions significantly. And you were alluding to that when you were saying, look, sometimes we have to fly out. look, they don't want to, the prospect doesn't want to make arrangements, talk to their assistant, book the meeting on the counter, book the meeting in the conference room, make sure that everything's going on. Like they just want to, they're trying to solve a problem. And the more energy goes into that problem for the salesperson, it sucks because that means that you have more friction to try to get your face in the door. But these tools have just really lubricated. I hate that word. It just sounds so gross. Have really streamlined
Yeah.
the whole sales cycle.
Well, we on the chat, not only have they streamlined it, you obviously were using these tools. You were using these years before we started using them in our industry. But what has changed is COVID-19 has kind of
Forced
us onto video. And I will say, prior to COVID-19, all of my calls were, if I was talking with somebody who was out of town, they were just on the phone, no video. And now, the difference between 6 months ago and to date is all of my calls are scheduled via Zoom or a video platform. So it's interesting how it forced us on here, but it was all for the good. I mean, based on the research that you're talking about, it really does improve your ratios and your ability to interact with somebody. So I think we think it's a really good thing. And that's why we wanted to have the chat, because I've seen a lot of mistakes on video calls. I've seen a lot of things that really, if somebody doesn't turn their camera on, some things that we just kind of thought, why don't we come up with a list of tips and tricks and have Andrew help us kind of cultivate this list, and have our CRE community help us cultivate this list so we can provide kind of some suggestions for more successful video calls now that we're all on here.
Yeah.
And both of you touched on great points about like in what ways we're altering how we're altering our presentations for virtual viewing, because there are still some people that are dialing in and not using video, and we do have to pitch business and still have to consider that people are going to dial in and we're not going to be able to see their face or when they laugh and get like physical feedback from them. And then also they can't see your presentation either. So how do you accommodate those people who want to stick to dialing in and aren't open to using their video? And obviously we chat about how we are changing our presentations and just the best ways to accommodate everybody that may choose not to use the video.
That's a really good question. So I'll start with that one first. So I look at it, like I zoom out and I look, what am I trying to achieve from this meeting, right? Let's say a prospect, we jump on Zoom and they don't have the camera on and they've called in. It's like you trying to, let's say you have a crush on this one individual in high school and asking them out on a date and saying, great, why don't you call me at 7 p.m. I'll be done with my homework then. And you try to make a date happen that way. That is not a date. So your effectiveness to potentially kindle some sort of relationship is virtually zero, right? So that's what discovery calls are. Those are the calls that you have before you were able to schedule the Zoom meeting, right? So if somebody calls into the Zoom meeting and you have a presentation or you're face-to-face, when they call via the phone, I say, look, I need to be able to show you what we're going to be going over. When is a good time when you'll be in front of a computer? Because I don't want to waste your time right now. This is a visual workflow. And if they say, no, let's just do it right now, let's just chat about it. You can be what's the word I'm looking for? You can be courteous and say, okay, well, here are the bullet points, but I really just have to show you. So when is a good time that you'd be on that? And if they just blow you away, like push you aside, they're not really interested. They're probably just either trying to pump you for information, et cetera. And I know this is hard, super hard. Let's say I can say this, but let's say you're talking with somebody who's like got 100,000 square foot building and they want to list it for sale and you're trying to pitch that and they jump in there. That the size of the deal may make you want to just proceed to please the customer, but it's like pleasing the customer and you're not going to get the business. So you try to make it as courteous as possible, but at the same time, like making sure that they have that. Because sometimes these big opportunities are just vaporware, right? They're not real. They're trying to pump you for information, and if they're not trying to pump you for, if I have 100,000 square foot building I want to sell, that's several $1,000,000, right? I'm serious about it. I want to get top dollar for that. So if they're just doing voice with you, they're probably doing video with somebody else. So I would get that done. Now, the other thing too is a lot of the times a prospect, and this happens to us every day, a prospect will come on and not have the camera on. And the first thing you say, because the interaction of you being able to see them is just as important as they're trying to see you. It's not a necessity, because as long as they can see you, it's great. But you should ask them, go, hey, do you have a camera on your computer? And if they say yes, you go, do you mind turning it on? Or you're not going to wait here until you tidy up. Would love to meet you face to face. And that increases the interaction, because what you say and how you interact with a prospect is really about, seeing their body language. And, it's what they teach you in sales. I'm looking at NB and I can like sit here and cross my arms like this. And now she feels more comfortable that I'm talking and being happy and saying all these things, because you're mirroring them. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, we like people who are like us, and we like people who are interested in us. So the camera is really important, but you should always ask, because I would say probably like 50% of the time they do have one and they turn it on.
Yeah, and I guess you sitting here talking to us, you can see us nodding. But I will say, Andrew, when I have Zoom calls, I'd say probably 75% of them, the user on the other end will turn their camera on. But that other 25%, I really don't push it too hard.
You can't.
I don't
not.
push it, but I keep my camera on and I interact as if they were, as if I was looking at them, and so they can see my interaction. I think that makes them feel more comfortable.
Yes.
And I found that when I've had calls like that, maybe the second call that I've had with somebody, that same person, they're more likely to turn their camera on. So I still think the industry is kind of easing into this a little bit, and you just can't force everybody. If people don't want to show their face, they just don't want to show their face. I will say though, for a Zoom presentation, if you are the one giving the presentation, you have to show your face. I know, Casey, we had some tips and tricks on here. We asked, in question number 3, what works well and not so well in virtual presentations. And I think, my number 1 is, and you said it, Andrew, I'm looking at it, it says number 1, show your face. So if you're not showing your face, what's the point in having a virtual presentation?
Yeah, you could do it over the phone and go turn to page 2, turn to page 3.
Yeah.
Let me back up because I think the audience needs to know this. If somebody doesn't show their face, ask once, don't push it. And you're absolutely correct on that, because sometimes they go, oh yeah, I can turn it on. And 50% of the time they'll say, at least for us, 50% of the time they go, yeah, I'll turn it on. So that way you can, I'd love to meet you. Oh, I'm not, if you're not ready, and I'll press it. Hey, if you're, in your pajamas or whatever, or you just, everything's a mess, don't even worry about it. But I just would love to meet you sometime.
I will say when we have Teams here at work, and I think you use Teams as well, Casey.
You're talking about Microsoft Teams?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you can also make video calls through Teams. One reason I maybe don't turn my video on is if I just get a random call and it's a random video call. Typically, if that happens and I'm not completely prepared to show my face for whatever reason, I will keep the camera off. But on scheduled meetings that, I've scheduled and put together, I'm absolutely on camera and I'm prepared to be on camera.
The one thing that we're not talking about is a lot of people are insecure about being camera. And, we have to keep in mind that we're kind of like in that top end % of people, because I was uncomfortable when I first started too. It can be, nerve wracking for a lot of people. And the one thing is changing the perspective and going, look, do you go out cold calling in person? Yeah, you do. Well, then you should have no problem turning on the camera. But you know what? You have to ease into it. So why don't you practice with your coworkers? Why don't you practice, a great way to do it is to make, a lot of people are uncomfortable on camera, especially, I'll give you an example. So what we did, because we require a DIGSI for certain positions like sales, marketing, or customer service, support, etc. Any customer facing role, when the team's interviewing these individuals, it's required that they feel comfortable going on camera, or if they haven't done it before, that they feel comfortable, learning how. So what we did to kind of like, you try to optimize things, and sometimes you try to optimize, but it actually works the other way. When the team was trying to hire our last customer success person, which is essentially a mixture of support and account management, we had a requirement on the job posting saying, hey, send your resume and send us a video why you feel you would be a good fit. And people would submit it, but we noticed that there were just a very, very few amount of people actually submitting or applying. And we actually ended up talking to somebody, and they said, yeah, my friend wanted to apply, but there's a lot of work in trying to look pretty. Do I kind of like filter myself out by giving this video when I could just send my resume and get a call and trying to like ease my way into it? So we kind of asked for the merit certificate up front. So I think we screwed that one up. But back again, sometimes we have to remove that barrier. And that goes back to, hey, if they don't feel comfortable, if the prospect doesn't feel comfortable going on video the first time they see you, then just don't push it.
Yeah, well, that leads us kind of into another thought. Casey is like the ultimate pro at going on video. She goes on video on Periscope, live on Twitter.
Her iPhone.
Her iPhone. And so she actually had some really good points during the chat about ways to kind of improve your appearance and lighting and things that you can do maybe to help you feel more at ease on video.
Every time I go live on Twitter, I'm like, I'm just going to do it, because if you pre-record, you're going to watch it, you're going to see things you want to fix, you're going to want to say something different. And by going live, it's like, it's out there. Like, there's no fretting over it or deciding not to use the video. And Andrew, I told you on one of our happy hours that I tuned in to with you and Conrad. That was the first, and this was only maybe a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time I had downloaded the Zoom app. So anytime I had a video call scheduled on my calendar, I always made the best efforts to be at my computer. So I'm not on my iPhone or scrambling to try to find the mute button, that I'm ready and I'm prepared and I'm at the video. And really a big suggestion on our CRE chat was to prepare ahead of time. And so many people had repeated that on CRE chat. There's Wi-Fi issues, freezing, glitches, can't figure out how to share your screen, can't figure out how to turn your computer on. Audio is a big issue that everybody probably struggles with, like I did at the beginning of this. And so just really preparing ahead of time for your virtual presentations is probably the number one thing to do.
Yeah, and the other thing too is for the individuals that don't have a lot of experience doing it. We can give them a lot of advice, but this can actually hold them back, saying, oh crap, I don't want to jump on the camera because I haven't mastered my presentation or this and that. We all learn how to walk by falling a lot and like leaning on the couch. And yeah, we got, bumps and bruises and things like that. And no matter how prepared you are, if you haven't done it several times, you're going to get bruised. So just jump on it. Don't overthink it. The people on the other line, because it's only been since, the past, 9 months that people have started embracing this in the mainstream, they're still trying to figure it out. So when you go in there and you have audio glitches, etc., the first time around, you can prepare if it works, and then you have a break, something happens, don't feel bad. Just ask the prospect, would you like to reschedule? For some reason, I'm having issues with this. We just started doing that. The prospect on the other end understands, just like that they understand now if your dogs are barking in the background or like your baby runs in and like goes, Dad. So it just do it. Just do it. Don't overthink it. Don't try to make it perfect. Don't spend all this time getting ready. Just get some experience under your belt. Get that bruising, get that callus. So that way, you can actually play a strong game throughout the whole thing. It's just sport, like anything else. Yes. Practice makes perfect, and pain builds endurance.
Well, you make such an excellent point. And the thing about it, relating this to a sport, we've all just started playing this sport in the last 6 months. So now is the time. Everybody is a little bit more gracious right now because they understand that everybody has been forced on this platform during COVID-19. So again, you mentioned the dog or the kids. there's this period of forgiveness right now. So if you are waiting to jump on video, your competitors are going to be light years ahead of you because they were forced into practicing now. So do not wait. Now is the time. And I hear Casey saying, prepare. And I hear Andrew saying practice.
Well, I did
So,
the same thing. Keep in mind, I said the same exact thing on the Twitter on CRE chat that Casey was saying, but I'm taking the opportunity in this video to really just make sure that people know that you don't have to be perfect or worry about, just get some experience in your belt, because I think a lot of times we can give advice, but at the same time, that advice pushes people who are a little insecure about things, but we want them to do well. They're talented, but they just got a little bit of an insecurity on something new. And I just think you just got to get out there and start, hold the couch. Who cares if you bump the coffee table?
Yeah.
At least you're going to learn how to walk faster the more bruises you get.
I have to say, I still have insecurities. And Casey and I have been doing this podcast for over a year now. We are more familiar with Zoom than, most people. But I talked about this on the chat, I like to stand up in my presentation. So I find myself, I have to really be aware of not moving around too much, shifting my feet or fidgeting. And I even know one time.
Actually, I don't think you should do that. I actually think the opposite. I think
you think I should move around?
I think standing up and moving around is great.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like that just shows liveliness and energy. Be yourself. If that's who you are, be yourself.
So
the only
that's
thing
good
is like
feedback.
Yeah.
Because I'm a little bit self-conscious about that, but maybe I am overly self-conscious about it. So to be able to practice with somebody and have somebody give me feedback is really excellent, because now, maybe next call I have, I won't feel so self-conscious.
Well, look what you're doing right now. That's just the thing. It's like your body language that's unique to you. And I go, okay, that's MB Alexin, right? Or as other people know you, Melissa Alexander. That's Flan Casey right there. Like it's, if you like standing up and you like doing that, see, the one thing about being self-conscious is really you're worried about how people will receive you, make mistakes, and we try to make things perfect. Look, if you're a square peg, you're a square peg. If you're going out there going after round holes, that's your fault, because you're going to be insecure because you're trying to go, am I going to fit in that round hole? It's all about being yourself, and you want to do business with people who are like you as well. So you kind of have to, don't worry about the fidgeting and things like that. There's always when you replay the video, which we recommend, is always record your interactions so you can go back and look, you can see and have an opportunity for refinement, but don't edit yourself. Just polish the things that you do. It's all about polish. It's not about editing, because at the end of the day, you don't want to do things that are not naturally you. If you like to stand up and you like to move around, do it. That's your signature move, man.
That's really funny, because at the beginning of this podcast, I was kind of looking at myself. It's like right at the top corner of my screen. I'm like, I look really stiff, but like I'm sitting up super straight, and actually right now it feels comfortable for me. But the way I was seeing myself on the video was, I look really stiff. Like I look kind of uncomfortable sitting here, and I don't think I'm used to working from home yet. I've been in and out of the office. I don't have a formal work from home setup, which I think I might need to do, especially with the flexibility of work from home and being in the office and being able to coordinate that time between the two. But it's really funny that, Melissa, you want to stand still, and I'm looking at myself. I look really stiff because I'm like sitting up super straight at my dining room table. And Andrew's like, just, relax is pretty much what you're saying. And another tip that we had, and Andrew, you pointed it out, was have fun doing this.
Yeah, that's the main thing is, so even if it's a prospect, you got to kind of be careful about certain things, but you kind of feel your audience when you're talking to people, and you can crack a joke at the beginning. I mean, if it's joking around, it's not your thing, but usually I want all of our sales meetings, like at least the sales meetings from our team are different than the sales meeting I have. I usually have meetings with, a different type of client or a different type of partnership, which you tend to be C-level individuals or I guess they're considered C-level. So I try to start out like this, tiny bit of small talk or crack a joke or ask them about the weather or say, just anything. Just be curious about them, because I'm genuinely curious about other people. But the one thing is just pretend like you're just at a party and you meet this CEO or this owner that has a 100,000 square foot building, you're not going to go, oh, you have it? You want to sell it? List it? You're not going to do that. You're going to be just chatting about them. Go, hey, why'd you buy the asset? Why'd you do this? And just be genuinely curious about their thing, and then crack a joke here and there if you can. If you notice that they're a little bit more professional than usual, then you may want to say, just mirror them. It's kind of like, you're just gonna, meetings are waves. And what I mean by that is either you get run over by the wave, right? And you can possibly drown if you don't have big enough of a pipeline. But at the same time, you got to use the wave and the current to be able to surf through it. So it's not like one thing's going to work all the time. You have the variables and the waves coming out of the ocean, and you have a tool called the surfboard. The surfboard in this instance, it's called a virtual meeting, whether it's Zoom, Google Meet, WebEx, whatever other people use. And you just kind of use that and use the visual cues and the audio cues from their voice to be able to navigate that wave. And that's pretty much it. And you're not going to hit it out of the park 20 all the time. You might get 50% of the sales. You might get 60% of the sales, but it's an opportunity for you to refine and polish, and you're never ending refining and polish. Believe me, it just never happens. And that's the fun part, right? Like, most people think that you have to be perfect at everything, but people don't complain when they play a video game, right? Like when you start back in the Nintendo days, you play Mario Brothers, the first thing that people did was like go and run into the ground and die. But you didn't see them crying and like saying, I'm never playing this game again. They just tried again.
Yeah. Well, so I think that's a great point. I know we have to wrap up, and I think to finalize that, just jump on that surfboard and ride the wave, right? Mm-hmm. Jump on the surfboard, ride the wave, and have fun doing it.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. We're too serious about stuff. We need to relax. I can understand if people are under the gun because of financial pressures or anything else, but you got to have fun at the same time.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, every podcast we kind of end, we could talk about this forever, but you guys probably don't want to listen to us forever, but I'm sure any three of us are happy to jump on a Zoom video call. So please reach out to me, Melissa, especially Andrew. Please reach out to him and just let us know how we can help you with your virtual presentations or anything else. So thank you, and tune in September for the next CRE Chat on Twitter.
#CRE Chat Live.
There you go. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Andrew.
Bye.